Everybody to the first meeting of the Appropriations and Revenue Committee for the 2023 session of the General Assembly. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Senator Boswell. Here. Senator Deneen. Here. Senator Douglas. Senator Funky Fromeyer. Present. Senator Givens. Here. Senator Neal. Senator Nemes.
Present.
Senator Webb. Senator Mays Bledsoe.
Very well. There being 8 members present, we have a quorum duly constituted to conduct business. For both of you who like to watch this committee at home online on a regular basis, you'll see a lot of new faces from around the Commonwealth that we are glad to welcome today. A lot of our freshman members have joined this committee, and they're certainly a breath of fresh air and new ideas, and we do appreciate having them on board. At this point, we are going to go ahead and get rolling with House Bill 1. Representative Reed, if you would like to come up, sir, and briefly explain that to us, and then we'll hear opposition testimony, questions, and take a vote.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the committee. House Bill 1 simply does 2 things. First, House Bill 1 codifies for clarification the conditions laid out in House Bill 8 from 2002 regular session has been met, certified by the executive branch, resulting in the personal income tax rate being reduced from 5% to 4.5% on January 1st, 2023. Second, House Bill 1 codifies for implementation of the second rate reduction, which has been certified by the executive branch and will reduce the personal income tax rate from 4.5% to 4% on January 1st, 2024.
Perfect. Thank you, sir. All right. I'm going to ask you if you wouldn't care just to take a seat back there. Pam, if you would like to come forward, please.
Thank you. And can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And I think that Senator Givens, Senator McDaniel, and Senator Neal are the only people that are still here from when I was here. So welcome to all the new members. I look forward to getting to know you. Chairman McDaniel and members of the A&R Committee, thanks for this opportunity to testify. My name is Pam Thomas, and I'm a senior fellow at the Kentucky Center for Economic Policy. I spent most of my career staffing this committee. I started with A&R in 1991, and I retired in 2016. One of my primary roles over all of the years I worked at LRC was to help you understand the policy implications of the decisions that you make, and I really did love my job because I felt like I was helping to make a difference. I come before you today with this background to ask you to reconsider the practical and policy implications of continuing to move forward with the additional income tax reductions under House Bill 1. From a fiscal standpoint, things are really good right now. Revenues are strong, the Budget Reserve Trust Fund is at a record level, but this is also the case for almost all states, not just Kentucky. The many billions of federal pandemic aid spurred a fast recovery, and inflation is higher than it has been in 40 years. But those causes of higher tax revenues are going to come to an end. Forecasters don't predict the same growth going forward. It's interesting to note that without the income tax, we wouldn't have a significant budget reserve trust fund like we have now because the income tax accounted for about 47% of the revenues that were above projections. Last session, you enacted a budget that began to restore some of the funding that has been reduced through the many rounds of budget cuts following the Great Recession, continuing till just a few years ago. You started to address the state workforce crisis by providing significant salary increases with a promise of more for this year, and you made critical investments in many other areas. A great first step in recognizing the importance of investing in the people of the Commonwealth. But much remains to be done. There's a critical teacher shortage. Affordable child care isn't readily available in our state. The Department of Juvenile Justice and the children it serves are suffering greatly because of the inability to adequately staff facilities. And much more investment is needed to help people in eastern and western Kentucky to recover from the floods. The list goes on, and the needs are great. My concern about the continued reduction of the income tax rate is that the formula on which the cuts are based is static, backwards facing, and based on a single year. It doesn't consider the future or the content within which revenues are raised, and recent elevated tax collections are temporary and will likely not continue. But the cuts will be permanent. It's really hard, as you know, once you cut something to go back the other way, and they'll result in a major loss of revenue. The general fund is going to lose over $1.2 billion annually when the cut from 5 to 4% fully phases in. And for scale, that's more than $1.1 billion that you appropriated to fund the entire system of higher education. That's a huge hit. And for most individuals, other than those in the top 20%, the money they'll keep in their pockets as a result of the cuts is small. Kentuckians who are under the poverty line receive no benefit at all because they don't pay income taxes. But they do pay a bigger portion of sales taxes as their overall income than you and I do in their family budgets. The typical Kentucky family, those in the middle class, will retain between 38 cents and $5 a week from the rate reduction of 5% to 4%, hardly noticeable in day-to-day life. So there's a huge gap in the loss of revenues at the state level when compared to the actual benefit to individuals and families, what they're actually going to have in their pockets. And you know, there's not a whole lot of room with other taxes to make up the lost revenue when the need arises. The only big exemption is in the sales taxes for groceries, one of the few exemptions that makes that tax less regressive. And if you tax groceries at the full 6% rate, you'd only make up about half of the lost revenues. The sales tax rate on our existing base of all purchases would have to be raised to 7.4% to make up the lost revenues. And that would make our state rate the highest in the nation if we went there. There are states that have higher rates, but that's because of local rates as well. There just simply aren't a lot of places to go in Kentucky, honestly. We don't have huge tourist bases like Tennessee, Nevada, and Florida, and we don't have oil and gas like Texas, Alaska, and Wyoming. And why do I mention those states? Because those are all states that don't have an income tax. But the reason that they don't is because they have other places that they can go that Kentucky just doesn't have. Our economy is very different from these other states, and the differences are really critically important to consider. I think if you ask your constituents, both businesses and individuals, what they want to expect from you as leaders who decide how state dollars are spent, I think they'll tell you they want good, strong public schools, access to affordable child care, safe drinking water, and roads that don't have potholes. And they'll tell you they want their fellow Kentuckians who have fallen on hard times and need help to receive that help. And when we all stop and think about it, isn't that what we all want for ourselves, our families, and each other? I've been a part of and observed our state budget process for over 3 decades now, and based on that experience, I think there are significant risks to our state's ability to do the things. Will be severely compromised moving forward if the cuts continue. You know, the income tax is a source of 41% of our general fund revenues. That's really all I have to say, and I really do thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Pam. Appreciate it. Are there any questions from the committee at this point? All right. Seeing none, Madam Secretary, please call the roll. Oh, hold on. I need a motion on the bill. Forgive me. A little rusty from Senator Givens, second by Senator Boswell. At this time, Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Senator Boswell? Yes. Senator Deneen?
Yes.
Senator Douglas?
Aye.
Senator Funky Fromeyer?
Yes.
Senator Givens?
Please cast your vote and explain, sir.
I'm proud to cast an aye vote and appreciate the work that's gone into this. Appreciate the insights that are offered by those that have concerns. We arrived at this in a very delicate manner for those that were engaged in the conversation. This was not a hasty piece of document that was proposed. We worked through lots of iterations to get to the right place. The safety valves are built in such a way that I'm confident that we will be able to sustain the growth of the economy in Kentucky and meet the needs of our citizens as it relates to state government. And I'm excited to vote yes and continue to see this move forward. Thank you.
Senator Mays Bledsoe?
Yes.
Senator Neal?
I pass. I'd like to explain my pass.
You've already cast your vote, so explain, sir.
I know that the best intentions are behind this initiating the House Bill 1. My concern is what's been expressed from that bench there. And I think that if the comparisons that we make using Tennessee primarily as an example of why we should be doing this in Kentucky, I think really does not hold water, at least significantly enough for me to make a decision to support it at this time. I may change my position when we get to the floor, but I'm not convinced at this time.
Senator Nemes?
Cast your vote
I'd
and
like to
explain,
explain
sir.
my aye vote. I never thought we would be explaining or defending lowering taxes to some people. They talk about this as a permanent tax cut. Well, all of the tax raises were permanent tax raises. In effect, they're actually only permanent until the legislature changes it. So I'm proud to lower taxes for working people who always pay the taxes. The poor, as was stated, don't pay taxes. And the rich don't pay taxes. They pass it on or avoid it somehow. It's always the working class that pays. So I'm proud to lower their tax.
Senator Webb. Chair McDaniel.
Aye. There being, is that 8 aye votes, 1 pass vote, the measure passes with favorable expression.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the committee. Always a pleasure working with y'all.
Likewise. All right, we have one other item on the agenda for today. That is House Bill 2, sponsored by Representative Michael Meredith. I don't know that you've been involved in this issue before. So, gentlemen, if you guys would please introduce yourself for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Senator Mike Wilson.
Representative Michael Meredith.
The floor is yours, gentlemen.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. This bill is the culmination of a lot of work over a long period of time. And in fact, when I was first approached by it, it was 2014. And I can tell you that the majority of the work that was done on this was done on the front end by our veterans. And I would just like to mention their names. Ray Biggerstaff was the first one who came to see me about this. But also we had the voice that's behind this for many years before that was Colonel Spiller. And I think that we've talked about this, that it would be, the facility would be named after him. But also Bill Lytle, who was involved in that. Our Military Officers Association worked very hard. They did certificate of need work on the front end of this, and we had I believe our first hearing in the VMAP committee was in the interim of 2014, if I'm not mistaken. But I can tell you the guy sitting next to me on the right, who is the sponsor of this bill, has done yeoman's work on it. In fact, I think when we had a little scare about it was going to cost a lot more than what we originally estimated it was going to cost. It would be $30 million. The feds would make up 20 of that, and we would have to provide 10. Well, as you know, construction costs have skyrocketed, and we got a shock when it came back that they approved it at the federal level, but we needed an additional $16.8 million, something like that, money. And so this guy right here called every single person in Washington, D.C., I think, and more, and they finally said, okay, you're approved, but you got to come up with the rest of the money. And so what happened over the period of the interim this past year was both sets of leadership in the House and the Senate agreed to fund this. And that's why we're here today. So I'm going to let our sponsor here share anything that he'd like to share and go from there.
Senator Wilson has done the hard work already, Chairman McDaniel, members of the committee. I will just say the price tag on this is an additional $16.63 million. We were over budget about $18 million total when the bids came in. The federal government was able to pick up a 10% variance of the amount that they were supposed to pick up, but the VA allows for no further variance beyond the 10% in their calculation. So again, everyone agreed during the summer of this past year that we would fund this for such a long, coveted project that we have worked on in this General Assembly for so many years. First budget appropriation on this happened in 2017, I believe. Second appropriation was in 2020, and this will be the third in 2023 with your help today. Be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
See, Senator Boswell.
Just one question. What was the total price of the entire project?
So the total price is right around $58 million, all said and all done, $58 to $60 million. That's not an exact number because there's obviously contingencies and things that go into those contracts, but it's right in that ballpark of about $58, $60 million.
Very well. Senator Givens?
Mr. Chairman, a brief moment of indulgence, more of a comment than a question. And colleague Mike Wilson and colleague Michael Meredith, thanks for your leadership on this issue. Mr. Chairman, thanks for hearing this important piece of legislation. Mike, my friend, you mentioned Colonel Spiller, and I've got to reminisce for just a moment, and I do this and ask some indulgence, Mr. Chairman, because this goes back to the late 1980s. I'm not going to recount the entire stories from that time to now, but late 1980s, there's this freshman that shows up at Western Kentucky University and ends up working at the Ag Expo Center, and his name is David Givens. And he arrives there from the farm, really having spent very little time in any city the size of Bowling Green. And he encounters this guy living there. As he's living there at the Expo Center, the director happens to be this guy named Colonel Robert Spiller. And so this college student is discovering a world away from the farm. At the same time, he's discovering a taskmaster that shows up at 8 o'clock every morning, wants the halls cleaned, the kitchens cleaned, the restrooms cleaned, and it's kind of a conflict of a couple of worlds. Colonel Spiller, though, his passion was truly the veterans. And late 1980s, and up until he was not able to do it anymore, he was voluntarily on his own transporting veterans from the Bowling Green, South Central Kentucky community to Nashville to access veterans hospital services and veterans medical services in Nashville, Kentucky. And so it's so appropriate that this building and facility be named after him. I'm excited to be there as part of the groundbreaking and excited to represent part of Warren County as we advocate for this issue. And there is no one that could name a building in a more worthy fashion than Colonel Robert Spiller as it relates to a veterans facility there in Bowling Green. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Senator Funky Freemeyer.
Yes, and thank you for all your work. I'm certainly ever grateful for our veterans. Can you help me understand, as the rookie freshman, what is the current community and the future community numbers approximately that this will serve?
So this is going to be a 60-bed facility, so there will be up to 60 at a time in the facility. But it will serve about 24 counties in South Central Kentucky where there's kind of a donut hole of not having one of these facilities near to them. We currently have five of these facilities across the state. The latest was done in Radcliffe in 2014. Prior to that, you had Hazard, Wilmore, Hanson in Hopkins County. I guess this will be the fifth. I say that. And that will take, at this point, I think the state has an allotment for about another 120 beds in the future. There's potential that we could look at additional 30 beds on this facility because that's what we originally looked at before prices started skyrocketing on this. We lowered it from 90 to 60 to try to make budget. We still couldn't make budget because of the situation we found ourselves in. But I think there's 120 beds left for the allotment for the state after this one is done still.
And I would just say that there was an audit that was done by our Veterans Administration to make sure where it was going to be placed. And it was found that South Central Kentucky, where it's going to be located, was the area of most need that would have the most veterans. And it seemed like it's around 40,000 in that 10-county region, something like that. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Senator Neal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is not a question. I just wanted to comment and congratulate the sponsor of this legislation. And Senator, I think this is very important. We need to do more supporting our veterans. Thank you for bringing this.
Thank you.
All right, very well. Oh, I apologize. Senator Deneen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to congratulate the bill's sponsor.
Can you hear me now? Okay. Here in my district at Fort Knox, and it is the latest version of a VA facility in the Carl Bashir facility there. I just want to thank you all for the heavy lifting on this and for your due diligence. It's been a long haul to service these people that need our help. The veterans hold a very dear place with me. And as we go forward, it's just not just the facilities that we need, but we need to continue to look as we go forward with the staffing of those. I know our newest facility in Radcliffe is one that we continue to need those staffings to fill those beds. And I think what we'll find in Bowling Green is a huge need, and we'll have the same situation that we have there in Radcliffe of veterans that want to be there and need that service. So thank you for providing an additional facility and all your work that you've done. And I look forward to future conversations that we can have to further staff those areas.
Very well. This time, seeing no further, I'll entertain a motion on the bill. Senator Boswell,
Second that.
second by Senator Neal. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Senator Boswell. Yes. Senator Deneen.
Yes.
Senator Douglas.
Aye.
Senator Funky Fromeyer.
Yes.
Senator Givens.
Aye.
Senator Mays Bledsoe.
Yes.
Senator Neal. Senator Nemus.
Aye.
Senator Webb. Chair McDaniel.
I'm going to cast my vote and explain. I'm going to cast an aye vote. I have a few quick comments. To Representative Meredith, you have been a tireless advocate on this project for a long time. There's another way to say that in less polite company, a major pain, but no. But
I'll take that too.
but you've absolutely been tireless, and the veterans in the Bowling Green community owe you a debt of gratitude, and certainly Senator Wilson has long had your back in this chamber as things came across, and Senator Givens has developed an interest in all things Bowling Green as well. I know I think we've got some TIF work to work on a little bit later in this session that's going to be critical to that community as well. But I do want to take the time to congratulate you, but also to remark about the nature of this. This is largely due to some inflation, some construction costs, but they're very, 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 very unique and long-term things involving our relationship with the federal government on this. So for all those who are currently licking their chops at the idea of this and getting more money for construction and inflation, I would encourage you to take the biblical maximum and abandon all hope. Because the odds are not very high. But that being said, I do congratulate you both, congratulate the Bowling Green community, and with 9 aye votes and no nay votes, the measure passes with favorable expression.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. We appreciate you all very much.
Yes, and
All
I
right.
appreciate you enduring my sharp elbows all these years.
Very well. Seeing no other business to come in front of the committee today, we will stand adjourned.